You're watching Thriving in Chaos with Brian Benstock and Jay Abraham on CBT News.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for joining us once again on Thriving in Chaos. I'm joined by Brian Benstock, partner, GM, and VP of Paragon Honda and Paragon Acura. Also dealer principal at White Plains Honda as well. Right. Also, I'm joined by Jay Abraham, who is a top executive coach, business leader, founder, and CEO of the Abraham Group, and has worked with companies all over the world in helping them add to their bottom line and increase their business. And so, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me once again on this incredible show that we've been able to put out to dealers and the automotive community. There's been a lot of talk about it. I've got in my hand some questions that I want to run by you about this topic of AI and what it has meant to the automotive industry. And so, Brian, let me start with you if I can. We heard from some dealers on this topic, and the big question is, where do I start as a dealer?
It's a great question. I think you have to start small, and I think dealers would best serve themselves by leaning into their area of strength. I'm a variable ops guy, so I would get the most incremental benefit from starting with something that I know, right? Because I can ask the better queries, I can see the opportunities to use AI. So I'm going to start out in areas like sales and start small, right? Whether it starts out with using AI to write sales letters, using AI to improve the things that you do on a daily basis. I think that's where you can get the most upside. What do we do on a daily basis? Well, we send text messages out. Of course, we send emails out. We write advertisements out. I think all of those things can be made many times better when you use AI. Recently, Jim, and I thought it was interesting. I'm an old fan of Ogilvy and advertising, and I remember back in the day those advertisements for Volkswagen. They were really cute. Lemon, and they had these great headlines that would cause you to think. And so we said, give an approach that was mirror the ads from Volkswagen in the 70s for this particular campaign we were running, and it gave us incredible ads that were very much like that with no cost, right? We were able to hire the best agency in the world to replicate but not duplicate the advertisements from them. So I would think you would be best served to start out small and then start to expand as you learn how to operate that. And also one of the ways you can start out is start incorporating it into the things you're doing daily. Most of the dealers I know are using it to dictate letters to. I dictate to Grok all the time. Mm-hmm. I'll dictate the letter, then I'll just say, hey, make this better. Okay. And then, with a product like Grok, it can learn your persona, and I think that's great. Yeah. And once it learns your persona, then I'll say, okay, make this better in the voice of Brian Benstock. Right. And it comes back with that voice, and it's not cheating. It's an aid, it's a tool to help you be more productive. So I think that's really where I would start.
Sure. Jay, I see you shaking your head on that. Do you concur?
No, I like that. I mean, you and I talked a little off camera, and I talked to Brian. I come from a world where you don't accept the first rendering. You go deeper and deeper, and then you comparatively challenge one variation against another because the differential can be so profound, and you can get it. You can say, create 5 versions. And then, as I said, you can actually ask it, tell me which version has the highest probability of, and whatever the outcome you want, and the second and the third. And I've found that sequence communication, not for a friend or a business response, but sequence variation, if it hits many different hot buttons each time that are different, can make a massive cumulative effect. So I'm from a world of saying, okay, don't just get excited because it can do it for you, make it do it better and better each time and different, and then let the market tell you by asking with a test or by asking it ahead of time to pre-test. Because I think, again, I live in, okay, if you get an X result, what if you can get it 50% or 500% more X result?
So I think to add to that, you can do it without guilt, right? You wouldn't ask your assistant to go back again, do it again, do it again,
right.
Better, go deeper, go wider. Come on, not the best you can do. And you can really give the AI a hard time. And
that's a good point.
With an AI bot like
guilt-free
Grok, it'll come back at you a little feisty. And you can get many, many versions without the brain damage or headache. And I think that's really one of the things that makes it magic.
Right.
And something that this comes from the entrepreneurial world that I frequent, but I think Brian would agree. I have 5 or 6 colleagues who are very good in entrepreneurial AI, and they say it different, but they all say that what's going to determine the unique benefit, the profit, the superiority, the competitive advantage is going to be your ability to really, and I don't want to use the word prompt, but to guide and direct it with very, very specific directions.
Mm-hmm.
Most people we were talking, they'll say, write me an ad. It'll write them an ad and they'll go, great. But the more you keep challenging it, the greater the outcome or the output and the income it'll produce, I think.
So an example would be, make this ad SEO relevant, right? Include the dealer's USPs,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Great.
Compare the dealership's USPs to the surrounding competitors'
Sure.
USPs, pointing out how we have a competitive advantage. And you can make that long query give you a really powerful answer. And prices to move within 3 days. What price point is our price point designed to make it move within 3 days? And what are the probabilities? And so I think that becomes really profound. And then, dare I say, you can template that. If you find that formula that works, you can template it where the only variability would be the specific car if you find a format that works for you.
Sure. How do you've got 500 or 600 employees company-wide. Do you have a major town hall or all hands-on meeting to say, this is the direction we're going and I want you to be thinking outside the box and use AI whenever possible?
The short answer is no. We're going to start out with a smaller group. I think the skunk work group, we don't want to have everybody going in multiple directions at one time. We want to have a certain group that's using it to get results and then expand that group. I don't want to turn the whole ship upside down. We've got a business model that works, and we certainly know that we can make it better. But let's have a separate team working on that. Maybe we'll get input from the rest of the team, but I don't want a lot of different people asking a lot of different questions, moving in different directions. Certainly they're free to use it as they see fit. But I think as a group, we want to try and specialize for the short term.
Jay, you work with all types of industries around the world, and you've got such a great reputation in working with those companies to increase their bottom line, increase their sales. From your perspective, where is automotive on the scale? Are other companies and other industries, I should say, way ahead of us already on this, or way behind us? Or is everybody kind of in the same boat with regard to using AI?
Yes and no. A lot of the marketing type businesses are using it very effectively for marketing type application. But as Brian said, he's variable oriented in the sales, but most of them aren't using it for the totality. I think the last time I tried to understand it deeply, there's 50 or 60 categoric ways it can either make or save you money, give you more result. I don't think most people are even close to there, but a lot of people are using it for advertising, marketing.
And it could do so much more. Right?
I mean, again, and if you think about it, the real opportunity is having this dyad, have it really be helping you increase the top, but also reduce the expense. When you combine that, it gives you this competitive advantage. But I don't think again, they tend to use it one way or the other in the rest of the world that I've looked at, the rest of the business world. I don't mean just...
And speaking of writing in ad, we use Gemini, right? I said to Gemini, give me a Caucasian male driving a Honda Civic in the city of White Plains. The Honda Civic should be red. And it created a video asset of a Caucasian male driving a red Civic in the city of White Plains. I mean, it's unbelievable.
It is.
And it took 3 minutes. It took 3 minutes.
With no art charge.
No actor fee.
Right, no actor fee, sure.
And so but I don't want to be in that business. I really want to work with my agency to have them take all their skill sets and their ability to make queries and to develop and design ads, and then to have 3, 4, 5 of them, and then to have a separate AI unit say, hey, which one's got the most likely benefit of doing what we want it to do in the marketplace.
Right. A lot of questions that we get is, will AI replace people? Not just from the workers that are saying, is my job going to be
Yes.
threatened, but also from the dealer principals and the business owners that say, hey, am I going to be able to run a dealership on less headcount? You know, because obviously today's average salary is way up there. I mean, as we know. What's your take on that?
Well, what's the goal? Is the goal to have less people? That's not my goal. My goal is to do more business, right? And so, what if we kept the business, the headcount the same, but did massively more business? I think that's what we want to do. We want to be more effective, more efficient. I think the short answer is yes, it will replace some jobs, but it's going to create many other jobs. So you want to be able to point that out. Just like automation in the factory led to less workers, but to other industries, right? To heated seats, to other opportunities. And now we have far more people involved in building a car when you count all the different factories that are involved in manufacturing.
Right.
Maybe not on the assembly line, but in the production of a car. We're no longer in the automobile business. We're a full-blown tech business, a tech industry. I think that's what's making it really exciting.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's just interesting. Again, my training is highest and best use theory. What's the highest and best use of effort, action, investment, people? There's research, and I'm going to generalize, but I think I'm pretty close. 20% of most people's efforts produces 80% of the result. Mm-hmm. If the 80% can be subordinated or transferred, and you can use them for higher and better purposes,
Good point.
you can enrich them more, they're
Right.
going to enrich you more.
Right.
The benefit is going to be accrued to the audience. So to me, you want to free them from lower yield. I mean, everything's about yield, I think, don't you think?
Right, so you want to have the least expensive person doing the maximum job that they can do, right? And I think that's always the case. And as AI replaces some of those bottom jobs, those workers can do a higher value or have a higher use in the company. I think that's what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, there's no question
And
about
you
it.
also, I mean, and the cost can be incrementally zero, but also you got 24/7, and you got them operating at concert pitch always, not being fatigued, not calling in sick. There's something really nice about that.
Yeah, but it also creates more business.
Yeah.
Right? More business, more people.
Right, right. Yeah, and the numbers that you were sharing with us in the presentation before this show were, I mean, off the chart. When somebody starts to formulate, and multiplies as you were doing, the enormity. I think a lot of dealers can't even get their head around that kind of an increase.
If you can go from closing 2-3% of customers that are in equity in your database to serving 10 or 20%, which is, I think, a relatively low number that nobody's doing, you can increase your business tenfold.
Yeah.
Wow.
And those are a few percentage points gains in talking more effectively to the most profitable customer you have in your database, already existing. If you can have that kind of incremental growth, it can be profound for the bottom line.
But also, you can have it without the corresponding expense that we normally associate.
Yeah,
So
good
it's,
point.
That's
yeah,
exactly
so that's where the real opportunity is.
That's exactly.
So
the
each of
point.
those incremental gains are far more profitable.
Yeah. So we talked a lot about the impact that it will have in a retail dealership operation. Let's talk about the purchase journey from a consumer. How will this be used from your perspective among consumers when it comes to purchasing a vehicle?
Customers are demanding that the process is easier, right? So I think it can help with that. I love the fact that when I order, I get served up on Instagram a motorcycle ad and they've got a guy there, a handsome guy, really cool looking, in front of a beautiful bike, and he's got gloves. And if I want to buy the gloves, I just click. Then I want to buy the gloves. It asks me what size, gives me two choices, brown or black, and boom, and it's delivered to my front door. Well, I keep asking our team, how do we do that with automotive?
Yeah.
How do we do that with an automobile? How do we have a special on a Honda Accord? I look at the Honda Accord, give me a choice of a cash or finance, give me a choice of colors, and then here's the special, boom, and have it delivered right to my front door. I think we're there. It's the resistance from inside the industry to do that that's preventing us from doing it. The tech is certainly there. The demand is certainly there. So I think we should go full in on that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm really fascinated, and Brian hit on it in his discussion with you, on personalization and customization. And I don't think, even though people in selling or in service know that is a bonder, that gives you trust, they don't really know how to do it at the level that I think the AI can do.
Well, and going back to getting from another industry, I didn't realize my Netflix is different than my daughter's. One day, I want to finish watching a series that I was watching. I went to my daughter's house, and it was all girly stuff. And my Netflix was a completely different experience than her Netflix. So that's customized scalability. And you look at most websites, with very few, I think Velocity's website is one of the exceptions, where when you go to the website, everyone gets the same experience, yet we're all different. So when are we going to catch up with that and provide different experiences for different buyers going to the website? Again, know me better, serve me faster, wow me everywhere. When I go to that website, I want to see what's interesting to me, and the people that I'm doing business with should know what's interesting to me.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Jay, this is one of those areas that everyone thinks right away, oh my God, not only am I going to be able to make more money, we're going to be able to save more money. What does this look like 5 years from now? Because I think where we are just in a very short period of time with AI, what does it look like in 5 years? I mean, 5 years, as you pointed out, is right around the block.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to let Brian address the technological one, but I'm reminded of something very, very profound. Many years ago, I used to speak for Tony Robbins, and he used to have a visionary economist there. And it was right when everyone thought we were going to run out of food. And this guy wrote a book called Unlimited Wealth, and his concept was any time there is a challenge, that technology will figure out how to not only solve it, but improve it. So all of a sudden, instead of making 100 bushels of corn an acre, we're doing 2,000. So I think it's, and I'm not saying it as well as you would, but I think it's going to just be better. It'll be different. And Brian's right. If you kick and scream and reject it and summarily deny it, then you will be basically a horse and buggy, and that's tragic. But if you embrace it, it can take you, I mean, a business that's limited becomes unlimited.
I think you bring up a great point. In the 1800s, 70% of the U.S. population was employed in agriculture, right? And now we have less than 2% employed in agriculture, yet we're feeding hundreds of millions more people. Wow. And so what if that repeats itself in our industry? Your question is an impossible question to answer. What's it going to look like 5 years from now? What's it going to look like 5 months from now?
5 minutes.
The deck that I did 2 months ago is irrelevant today.
Yeah, sure.
It's developing that quickly, and new players are coming in. Here's another piece of advice for our dealer colleagues: don't sign long-term contracts with any AI provider.
Makes sense.
And I'm talking to myself here. 30 days is a long-term contract, because the technology is changing, and you don't want to bet on the wrong horse. We have a couple of guys we're playing with, but what if they get it wrong and you're in there in a 3-year contract? You wouldn't sign a 5-year contract for an iPhone. And hopefully we won't do that for AI. I think you've got to remain agnostic and pick the best players in the market, the ones that are best for your needs, your particular needs in your dealerships.
Yeah. Having said that, Brian, what vendors out there most excite you in this area? What are the ones that you think get it?
The ones that are not in automotive. I had a guy, and he's sells a lot of. He's a well-known vendor. I won't mention his name. He came to me with his product, and we wanted market brand exclusivity. I don't want to help be a part of the dev team that develops weapons for my competitors to use against us, and they didn't want to participate. Thank goodness, because the AI that they promised, the AI that they had was AI light. It wasn't really AI. There are a lot of young companies, but I'm looking outside the industry for help inside the industry. I'm trying to align myself with companies like VinQ for used cars. I like their tech. I think they're like young upstarts. I don't know that Danny sleeps on the couch in his office, but I picture him doing that. And I loved what Dale Pollock did when he started Cox. This guy lived and breathed with us. I want somebody standing side to side in the trenches with us, developing products to solve my dealership's needs, right? Most of these companies, they go out and they want to scale to every dealer in the country. I'm not interested in doing business with those people. I want somebody that's going to spend the time making Paragon as great as it can be. I love what I see outside the industry from companies like Symphony. I like what Google's going to come up with. I think it's Google's game to win. They've got more data than anybody. So if Google, through their Gemini product, gets their act in gear and gets out ahead of it, I think they can be really exciting players. I like I said, what they're doing with some of the CGI for advertising. So it's going to be a very interesting race. 5 years from now, it's impossible to predict, but I will make the prediction. I don't think we'll recognize the industry that we're in 5 years from now.
Yeah, interesting. You want to comment on that? I see you shaking your head.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I think is very important is to travel outside your comfort zone. And if you think about it, traveling out, everyone's traveled outside of their city, their state. Most of the dealers and the people watching outside their continent, probably many places in the world, but every time you do it, it expands your worldview, it expands your sense of possibility.
Yep.
You see all these alternatives you've never thought about. I think studying what's going on in other industries, AI, that can be adaptive is very, very smart.
Right.
Because you get an advantage that way. Again, same thing. You can see things that the people that are concentrating on your industry, as advanced as they might be, aren't going to really have, because they're really focusing on how you define a problem, not the possibilities that are on the other side of it, so to speak.
Let me say it differently, right? We'd get a new salesperson in, and we'd show him the 12 steps to the sale, the road to the sale, and we'd show him, the delivery process. And back in the day, it would take 3 or 4 hours. And this young salesperson would say, "Why does it take 3 or 4 hours?" And we'd show him all the reasons why. We never stopped to think, that's a good question. Why does it take 3 to 4 hours? And should it take 3 to 4 hours? So I think with these technologies, we should be looking at for monumental changes. You've got coders that were once the most valued player at any of these tech companies that are now being replaced with AI. So you have service technicians that can be coders. You have service advisors that can be writing a code to solve problems. You could be using a tool like Grok at your service advisor's desk to listen to your service advisor, ask and answer questions, and develop a training program to train your service advisors. And it can do it in a matter of a week, have an outlined training program for service advisors. So no longer are we desperate to find service advisors, but we have the tools to bring a person with the quality of niceness to the service advisor desk and have them do a competent job relatively quickly.
Sure. How do you balance automation with the human element in the customer experience?
We're in the car business, and it's the people business, and you have to lean into your people and our customers. These are tools. These are not to replace human beings, because we're not going to replace the human beings that buy cars, and we shouldn't replace the human beings that sell cars. But we should use the technologies to help both sides.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So if you think about human nature, what we want more than anything is instant gratification, right? Everybody wants that.
That's right.
And if you think about it, I'm thinking right now, just with automation, when you can go somewhere and they do this and that, and all of a sudden they got an answer this quick, we are appreciative. When they're going to have far greater answers and far greater preemptive support and satisfaction of my needs before I even ask it, it's got to make the human being that is associated even more valuable, connected, trusted, and basically perform better, don't you think?
Yeah, for sure. There's no question. Brian, question here from a dealer. Can you share the top 5 applications that a dealer should be thinking about, and why?
In terms of use for AI?
Yeah, for AI.
Well, certainly helping with some of the phone volume. I think there's some mundane calls that are being answered every day that can be taken over by AI. But I think there's going to be a very different level of AI. I can't stand AI that's so obvious that it's AI, that has no personality. I think the AI has to be really responsive. I think it has to have the right tonality. It has to have not a lot of gaps in there, and it has to be able to quickly and promptly answer the question. So I think the phone is certainly one. In communication, whether it be letters or videos, I think that's another area of opportunity for us. And then as this advances and as the large language models improve, I think we want to start using it for outbound calls. All of us have the same opportunity. You have a number of customers that you want to reach. And let's say it's the example of inequity customers, and let's say you've got 5,000 customers in equity. I think the math is something like it takes 2.5 calls to make a contact. So, to reach 5,000 people, you've got to make 15,000 calls, thereabouts. How do you do that? How do you assign that to your BDC? But imagine if we had real technology that can help us solve for X, and that can help customers solve their problem in a very good way, and to help us solve our problems in a very efficient way. I think that would be really a great case study for it. Also, recalls. What a great way to reach your recall customers, to be able to reach out to them using AI and schedule appointments for things. I think the AI tools can certainly do that. And then the more advanced would be and again, you've got to be careful here. You've got to make sure you're not violating privacy of your customers. I think that's really important. But to have the AI be able to scrape and go through your database to find patterns that you can use to serve each customer in a unique way that they touch transportation. We're not in the car business, we're in the transportation services business. And that's to provide that transportation wherever, whenever, and however the consumer wants it. So what if we had technology that would help us to better serve our customers? I think that would be great.
Yeah, for sure. And at the end of the day, Jay, it's really, and I know this is way overused phrase, but it really is all about the customer, right? Today the customer's in the driver's seat.
Yes.
Right?
It is, yeah. And I think that there is Brian, I'll defer, because you want to finish first?
No, well, I think it's all about the customer, and no customer's asking you to get rid of your people. So the dealers that are contemplating, hey, I'm going to use AI and get rid of people. That's really not the place. I don't think that's the place to go. Think of repurposing and higher purposing your people. I think that's effective. But customers like being treated with a smile. We went to the dealership yesterday in White Plains, and it was really refreshing. Jason's doing a good job up there for us. Every person that met us with a big smile. Yeah, and that's important. We're still in the people business. It's the people business.
That's right.
So what I was going to say was that, and Brian's really great at this. I think any dealer that wants to really optimize and maximize the integrative power of human and artificial intelligence has to, first of all, fall in love with the clients they serve. Yeah. If you really aren't trying to make their outcome, it doesn't mean you're entitled to be rewarded for it, and profit is fine, but if you're not trying to make the experience, the transaction, the interaction, the best it can be for them, then you're in the wrong business, I think.
And I think that's been Amazon's secret. Bezos and his team are relentlessly pursuing making the process better for us. And I'm a consumer, right? And I use Amazon, and it just keeps getting better and better and better. And so there is no second place in the United States to Amazon, because they just continually improve what they're doing, and the spread between them and everybody else. There's Amazon, and then there's everybody else, and we're going to that product. How do we become that trusted source, as you said before, Jay, in automotive? And that's through relentless pursuit of doing what's right by the customer.
Right. Yeah. Right. For sure. But one thing we know is that AI is here to stay. The quicker dealers can get on board, the better off they're going to be. Yeah, right. Otherwise, they're just going to be left behind.
Yeah, and I think all of us understand that. I think we're all afraid a little bit. I don't know how, and I think it's throw yourself into it. Get started small. Learn it for your own personal use, and then you can figure out how that would best be transferred into the dealership. You can learn the best applications in your particular store. We've got to be very careful also. I think one of the other things to keep in mind is we're responsible for whatever happens in our store. So if you have a rogue AI product making calls, you're going to be responsible if that messes up. So and we've got to make sure, again, all the laws that are in place for human beings are also in place for robots. So you can't be making robocalls and driving customers crazy with calls. That's not what we're looking to use this for. It's to take some of the burden off of our employees and help make them more effective using the technology.
Yeah, the government right now is looking at whether or not they should be, really overseeing AI in a very big way. And there's a movement right now to say no, to get the government out of this. And it shouldn't be restricted in any way.
Again, that's a double-edged sword. There's a certain bias in all AI technology, the bias of the people that are creating the technology. So we want to make sure that those biases aren't in the technology. If so, then it's going to start using statistics to make decisions, and that could be problematic for us. There's a human element that has to be there. And again, the caveat, we need to make sure that whatever application we're using and however we're using it is compliant. Because if this has the opportunity to be a weapon of mass production, it could also be a weapon of mass destruction. If you make 1,100 calls or 11,000 calls inappropriately, you could have a problem.
That's right. That's right. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you in our final moments here about business. Talk to us about business at Paragon and all of the companies that you're over, all the dealerships.
Business is amazing. I think it's great, but we're seeing a return of 2019. We're not quite there yet. The profitability is still higher. We're working again, rolling up the sleeves, and it's good. Because we were in this false place after COVID, with profitability that was really incredible, and it's time to get back in to the business. Because we don't doesn't mean we can't, and people in my position must. You've got to get back out there, engaging with your customers, engaging with the team. And that's what we're doing. And at the same time, embracing the change. You can't sit there and say, this is going to go away, this is going to go away. It's not going away, but where are the opportunities? And I think that's where leadership in our industry is needed. And I think it's really great to see the opportunities that are ahead of us.
Is there any concerns, anything that keeps you up at night about?
Everything. I don't sleep. What did Trump say today? What did Elon Musk say today? What's going on in California? What's going on in the cities of New York? What's going on in Ukraine? What's going on in the Middle East? What's going on with China? What's going on? So what's keeping Bev? What's keeping us awake? Everything's keeping us awake. The competitors.
And you better stay awake, right?
You better stay awake. Like I said, I went to Kazakhstan. The Chinese cars a couple of years ago had a 1% share. Now they have a 30% share, and it happened overnight. And if it could happen there, it can happen here. So how are we hedging ourselves? How are we preparing ourselves?
That's right. That's right. Jay, what about you? You got your hand on the pulse of so many different industries and businesses out there that you work with. What's your take on where we are right now? Maybe at a macro level, but with all that we're seeing with the Trump tariffs and the economy overall, and some of the concerns that consumers and business owners have.
There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of people who are sitting on the sidelines, unwilling to make commitments because they don't know what'll happen. Now, sadly, but also positively, my business thrives in adversity. I love it because most people, when they're rich, fat, and sassy, they don't care. But when they need to figure out how to outthink, out-strategize, out-market, out-compete, out-value create, I love that.
I need you.
No, but that's exactly right. You're exactly right. So part of me is very empathic and part of me is very exhilarated, but we know lots of people whose business right now is challenged. And it's challenged because people are they're keeping their powder dry. And it's fabulously challenging in a positive way to me because I have many, you know this, I have 97 different ways to multiply performance without investment or risk. But you've got to, there's the best news about any adverse time is 100% of a market doesn't stop buying. And I always said, if you can be the one they turn to, if two things happen, the ones that normally would have that buyer cut service and attention, and you're also getting all the new buyers, the combination means you can actually grow and everyone else is basically dropping. And I think that's exciting to me, but you have to want to be preeminent, and preeminent has a lot of implications. You got to really care. You got to be very sensitive, and you've got to also, this is very, very tangential, but I look at clients, not customers, and I look at three kinds: the ones that pay you, and then the ones you pay. The ones that pay you, obviously, you got to basically understand them better than anybody else.
Of course.
But the same is the ones you pay, and that's your team, your vendors, your advisor, your professionals, because you want to get. It's mutual. This is the greatest quote I ever heard. I said it to you last night. Mutual self-interest is the greatest motivator of them all. 100%. You want to help. You want to get more yield out of everything, everyone, every decision, every activity, and you want to reward people when they help you do that.
Right. Right.
But a lot of people don't know. If everybody knew how much more they could get out of it, anything, they'd be doing it, wouldn't they?
That's right.
Theoretically.
Yeah.
But they don't.
That's right.
Anyhow, I don't know if that answer is. That's what I'm seeing.
I think that's a great way to wrap up the show. So, Thriving in Chaos with Brian Benstock. Thank you so much for joining us, and of course, the one and only Jay Abraham. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it, you guys. More than you know, and I know that as I said before, our dealer audience and the managers out there that are in the trenches every day will get a lot out of your time with us. So, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching Thriving in Chaos on CBT News.